Kia ora, everyone. Fantastic to see everyone. Before we begin, I would like to start the session with a karakia. So, tu taua mai I runga, tu taua mai I raro, tu taua mai I roto, tu taua mai I waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa. Haumi e, hui e, taiki e. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. We're delighted to have you all here for this Love Food Hate Waste webinar in conjunction with Rabobank and KiwiHarvest. Super excited to share the key insights from the 2025 New Zealand Food Waste Survey. I'm Sophie, the Program Manager for Love Food Hate Waste New Zealand, and it's really wonderful to see such a strong turnout from businesses, councils, community groups, and food waste champions across Aotearoa. These findings offer a timely and practical takeaways to support your mahi in reducing household food waste. And we're really delighted to be joined by the two leaders behind this research. So Angela Calver, the CEO of KiwiHarvest, brings deep experience across the food sector and leading an organisation making a huge impact on food waste and food insecurity. Is presenting alongside Blake Holgate, Rabobank's Head of Sustainable Business Development, who provides valuable insights into the environmental and market pressures shaping our food system. So just a quick reminder, you can submit questions in the QA at any time. This session is also being recorded for those that registered but can't make it today, and we'll share this recording alongside the slides today and the Love Food Hate Waste campaign toolkit at the end or later on this afternoon. So with that, let's get underway. I'm going to share my screen now, and Angela, I'll hand over to you to begin.
Thanks, Sophie.
So I can click. There we are.
Thanks. Look, I'd just like to start by thanking Sophie and the team from Love Food Hate Waste. It's great to work with like-minded organisations. And so thanks for organising today and extending this out to your wider network. Yeah, the message is definitely getting out there, which is great. And look, my first role, if I can get you to pass to the next slide, please, Sophie. Within this webinar is to introduce you to Rabobank. I feel very blessed to work with the people at Rabobank because while companies are companies, they're a corporate. Rabobank is really full of very good people who are committed to the work that they do. And yeah, I feel blessed to work with Rabobank. So Rabo are New Zealand's only food and agricultural banking specialists. They were set up in Netherlands 135 years ago as a cooperative by farmers for farmers, and today they have a presence in 35 countries. In New Zealand, the focus is definitely on food and agri, and they're guided by the global mission around growing a better world together. And we've been partnering with Rabo since early 2020, and part of the work we do is this survey. We do it every 2 years. KiwiHarvest tends to deal with food from kind of the supermarkets or retail backwards in the supply chain, but it's really important that we have a view on what's happening in households. So I'm going to hand over to Blake, and he will take you through the first few insights that we have.
Thanks, Ange, and like to also reiterate thanks for having us on the call. As I'll touch on soon, one of the drivers behind doing the survey is to create insights that can then turn into actionable actions. And having a platform like this, talking to people on this call, is exactly what we envisioned when we first commissioned this research. So thank you again for the opportunity to be able to share it. Look, it's my great privilege to be able to introduce KiwiHarvest. Ange says they think they're fortunate to partner us. Well, we very much enjoy the privilege of being able to partner with KiwiHarvest, who's New Zealand's largest food rescue charity. As Ange already mentioned, they're rescuing good food that would have otherwise entered the waste stream. Over 370 donors, working with community organisations and groups to get that food out to those people that need it. Started back in Dunedin in 2012, actually pretty much next door to where I'm sitting now in my Dunedin office, from Deborah Manning, a good Dunedin local, and have expanded since then to the point that I've now rescued over 18 million kgs of food, which is close to 40 million meals, so close to 10 times the New Zealand population, and rescued food that again would have otherwise ended up in waste. Yeah, we partner with KiwiHarvest in 2020 just because it really does align with our values, but equally our mission as an agricultural bank is, how do we ensure global food security in a way that reduces the impact that those food production systems have on the environment and climate. And that's a complicated, complex puzzle, but part of that puzzle is how do we ensure that good food that is being produced and the resources and effort that goes into it isn't wasted. And that's where KiwiHarvest really fits in that picture. If we go to the next slide, just a little bit of background on the survey itself. We've been running it in this format since 2021. It's entitled Food Waste Survey, but as we'll touch on soon, it's broader than just food waste. We really get into consumer habits and behaviours. It's an online survey conducted independently through a research agency, just over 1,500 online participants. This particular edition was run mid-July this year, run in a way to get a nationally representative sample. We try to keep the bulk of the questions consistent so we can see the trends over time and how that's evolved, although we do time to time add additional questions. We also break the survey down into relevant segments, gender, rural, urban, generational, so we can start to really dive a bit deeper into some of the insights. If we go to the next slide. So I'm just going to run through sort of some of the key high-level market results that we see to really probably set the scene for the conversation going forward. I think one of the next slide, please. One of the first and most interesting ones we always have is, what is the average weekly spend on food, not just groceries, but food for a household. And this survey, household worked out to, on average, to be 2.7 people. So this year's results showed the average household spend was $240. Now, normally the initial reaction we get from a lot of people is, how low that is. But as you can see over previous questions, that's consistently in the range of what we're getting feedback from our respondents. I think the most interesting one in terms of the change from this year to the last time we did the survey, which is 2 years ago in 2023, is we only saw a $2 increase in household spend. So roughly a 1% increase in household spend on food. We all know that food over that period has gone up significantly more than 1%. Stats New Zealand shows it in the range of 6 to 7%. So what that means is that effectively what New Zealand households are spending on food in real terms has reduced over the last 2 years. And what we'll touch on soon is some of the behaviours or responses we've seen from households to accommodate that. The next slide. So as we mentioned, households have had to respond to having less spend in real terms. So just a couple of the key facts we pulled out from the response is basically 1 in 3 are saying, well, I've just had to reduce the amount of groceries that I'm providing. I don't have more capital, I don't have more cash, therefore I need to reduce what I'm spending. couple of the other key ones is downgrading the brands. So either the products or brands to less expensive versions of what they were previously consuming. And half of respondents said, look, we're really actively looking out for those price reductions, promotions, specials. We probably all look to some degree for those, but these are the group that said, look, we go into the supermarket and we're deliberately seeking out those special prices. The next slide. So if just move on again. Oh, sorry, Ange, I'll pass back over to Ange to run through this section.
Sure. So thanks, Blake. I guess this section of the research is really looking at are our consumers, are our Kiwis becoming and our households becoming more waste conscious. And I know that a lot of people on this webinar really work hard to get education and awareness out there. And I think that does play a factor in this personally, but also, as we all know, the cost of living crisis is driving behaviour as well. So can I just get you to flick to the next slide, please? So the survey asked people around what's your estimate of the percentage of food waste that you have within your household? So the figure has come in for this survey at 10.9%. It is, if you see the demographics down the bottom, rural waste less than the urban counterparts, and males estimating that they waste a bit more than the females. Again, you can see generationally as well, the baby boomers and Gen X are reporting that they waste less than the Gen Z and the Gen Ys, but that brings it to a figure of about 10.9% of all food in the household is wasted, and that brings the bill annually to about $3 billion within New Zealand, which is a lot of cash. I'm sure people could do with that cash in their pocket. We are getting there. It has fallen down. The percentage has come down since last time, so that's always reassuring in our industry. So can I just get you to flick to the next one, please? And this slide really shows, we asked people, what are the foods that you are wasting? And vegetables, bread and fruit remains the most frequently wasted, in similar amounts to the last survey that we did. And, you know, that's pretty consistent with what we see as well at KiwiHarvest within the supply chain. Vegetables, I think bread is higher for us than veggies, and fruit. So pretty consistent there. Next slide, please, Soph. And then we asked, so for the food going off, what is your top reason for this food waste? Why do you think it's happening? So about 50% are saying that the food goes off before we can finish it. And then you have the food going off by its use by or best before, and then not planning sufficiently. And then you can come down to the 19%, the sixth pillar, and that's talking about buying too much, which is kind of linked with not planning sufficiently, which is linked with the food going off because the planning hasn't been done and they've bought too much. So they're all kind of interlinked, but each person was given 3 reasons to call out. So the blue is the main reason. I've got a bit of a different slide going on here. I'm sorry. Yeah, they were given the reasons. So about consistent as well from last time. Next slide, please, Soph. Sorry, flicked my page over. And then we talked to them about food waste in New Zealand is pretty persistent. Financial loss being people's primary concern about food waste. So the wasted money that they have within their household every time they throw away food. And 74% of people felt that that was their main concern around food waste. The second reason is in the green bar, and feeling of guilt that people are going without food around New Zealand, and the wasted effort of actually going and buying food and then just ending up putting it in the bin. Next slide, please, Soph. But encouragingly, rather than things getting worse, about 60% of people think their food waste has stayed the same. Fewer believe it's increased, especially in Gen X and the baby boomers and residential. So this is where it's really handy, the way that the survey is cut up into these different categories. So, yeah. Next slide, please, So. And then we asked some questions about best befores and use bys, and do you understand them? Do you understand what it means if you were to consume something after its best before date? And this and the next slide are kind of tied together. 1 in 5 Kiwis believe enough is being done to educate New Zealanders about food waste. So 19% said yes, but 71% felt no, that there was some effort being made, but more needs to be done. And some felt that there was very little being done. And if we can flick to the next slide, we then ask people, so whose responsibility is this education piece? So we asked them to grade every one of these buckets from 1 to 3, 4, and 5 to 7. Well, 1 to 7, I should say. And you can see here that 73% felt that the government and the education system were really the key players in the education piece. Then the food industry, then parents and caregivers, then local councils, media outlets, charities and community organisations, Garden to Table and KiwiHarvest, and then influencers and public figures. So, you know, this says that we've got more work to do, and that there is still confusion out there about the difference between a use by and a best before. So this is where we love the work of Love Food, Hate Waste, and are very happy to be involved in these sort of things. And I'm going to hand back to Blake for the next slide, please, So.
Thanks, Ange. As I mentioned, the survey is broader than just food waste. So we do look at shopping and consumption behaviours. So what we've done in the next section, just pull out some key stats and insights that we thought might be of interest and relevance. And as we go to the first one, this possibly is the most interesting and relevant for this group. But Ange alluded to asking Kiwis around their understanding around best before and use by dates, and what we know is basically one in 3 Kiwis still don't properly understand the difference, and I suspect that's for the people on this call and Love Food, Hate Waste, that's where the opportunity lies. I think the other probably interesting stat on here is there's been very little movement in the last 2 years in that level of understanding, sort of around the edges. But that's basically saying over 2 years, Kiwis as a whole haven't improved their understanding about the difference between best before and use by. So again, I think that's probably where the opportunity lies for this sort of educational campaign. Go to the next slide. Another sort of interesting one we always have in there is around the question around preferences for vegetables that look nice versus those that don't, or sometimes turn ugly, and what is that price point, or what are people willing to spend over and above to get the one that looks nice. So we we provide a picture of carrot A, which is your typical, I don't know if it's such a good thing as a good looking carrot, but typical visually appealing carrot, and say, are you willing to pay $3.99 for this, or would you prefer to pay $1.30 for the less appealing carrot? So as you can see, a significant price difference between the two. From a nutritional point of view, the values are exactly or largely the same. Despite that, we have roughly or over half saying that they're uncertain or would actually still take carrot A. So it's only 50-50. Even with that large pricing difference, there's still roughly half the Kiwis out there that say we're willing to pay significantly more to get something that looks visually appealing over something that doesn't look as appealing but has the same nutritional value. And again, we've sort of seen it, despite the cost of living crisis, despite the slide we had earlier around relative spend becoming less, sort of marginal change in terms of that behaviour of New Zealand consumers. The next slide. In terms of this is another reasonably interesting one. We asked them about cooking or eating out behaviours. So we actually saw an increase in those that said they are cooking at home, preparing meals 7 times a week or more. So that's 27% of Kiwis, up from 22 in 2023. But we also saw those that said, well, actually we're eating out twice a week, also increased. So 23% up from 19%. What we did is we sort of dived a bit more into the trends on which groups are saying which, and we really saw 2 distinct groups. So we saw that the older generation, the baby boomers living rurally, were those that said, look, we're eating more, preparing meals at home, and the younger urban generations were those that were saying we're the ones that are eating out or having takeaways more than we did 2 years ago. Next slide, please. There wasn't, and Ange presented stats earlier show we have seen some improvement in food waste in terms of households are reducing their food waste. There was no one kind of standout behaviour or behaviour change since the last survey that we could put our finger on and say, oh, well, that's the reason that we're reducing less food. But we did see some sort of marginal improvements in a number of areas, which I think is kind of accumulated in that improvement. Some of the key ones, Kiwis saying, more Kiwis are using shopping lists. So, and that goes with planning the meals. So they're sitting at home, they're planning the meals, they're translating that into a shopping list, they're going to the supermarket and they're buying what's on their list rather than sort of walking in and filling their trolley with whatever's appealing at the time. And the other one is, more of them are saying, are trying to maximise the value of the food they do have and ensuring they're cooking all the edible bits that they have. Again, not significant or major shifts since the last survey, but sort of nudges and improvements that all add up to reduced waste. Next slide, please. Another question we ask relates to those that identify as vegans and vegetarians, and also red meat behaviours, which I'll get on to the next slide. We've actually seen a reasonably significant drop in the number of Kiwis identifying as vegetarian and vegans. We've seen a drop from this year's survey back to 2023, but equally, if you go back to our 2022 version, we can see the number of Kiwis has trended down over that time, over those that have identified as vegetarians and vegans. Again, the interesting bit here was when we dived into some of the subgroups, and it was actually the younger generation, the Generation Z, that were the biggest proportion that were trending away from vegetarian and veganism. So that was kind of a reversal in some of the earlier trends that we'd seen when we first started doing the survey back in 2021. And possibly that links on to the next slide when we look at red meat consumption intentions. So we ask respondents, intentions around red meat consumption over the next 12 months. By and large, 65%. So the bulk of respondents say, look, we're going to maintain red meat consumption at similar levels. We do have 22% that said they are going to decrease. So still a significant chunk of Kiwis. But again, this is one that has trended down over time. So back in 2021, that number was at 30%. When we last did the survey in 2024, that was at 25%. This survey, it dropped to 22%. So there's less Kiwis saying they're intending to reduce their red meat consumption. And again, once we delved into the stats, what we saw is Generation Z were actually more of them were looking to increase their red meat consumption, and that baby boomer group, less of them were intending to decrease their red meat consumption. In terms of the driver behind that, overwhelmingly, not just in this survey, but over the course of the previous surveys, it's health reasons. So for health reasons is what drives that decision generally. Environmental and animal welfare factors come into it, but the overwhelming driver is health, both for those that are looking to increase and for those that are looking to decrease, depending on what approach you're taking. Next slide, please. Another question we ask is the use of food delivery services, and as you can see, there's been a substantial drop-off in the use of home meal delivery services, your Ubers, your HelloFresh, your DoorDash. Initially, when we first did this survey, it was a growth period. There was a novelty, and a lot of these was just starting to come on board. New, growing, expanding market share. Then COVID came along and really gave them a shot in the arm because of restaurants and takeaway services closing down. So we saw another kind of boost. Since then, obviously, restaurants and takeaways have opened up. So people have over the last 2 periods reverted back to previous habits around going out to eat rather than having it delivered to the door, in combination with the cost of living crisis, where just any additional cost or spend to gain that food, people have been looking to trim that, and possibly one of the places I've looked to trim that is through spending money on delivery services. Next slide, please. I'm just going to hand back over to Ange to wrap it up.
Thanks, Blake. So as a summary of this part of our food waste survey, New Zealanders are wasting less of their food than 2 years ago. The food waste attitudes and behaviours are largely similar. Small improvements to some of the key areas. Food going off before you can eat it and the best before and use by dates remain the reasons for most frequently wasting food. Kiwis remain most concerned about the wasted money, and that ties in, of course, with our cost of living crisis. And despite the reduction in overall food waste, less than 1 in 5, so flip that around, 80% of the people surveyed think that more needs to be done to address the issue within New Zealand. That's a really handy stat for me, because I do speak at a few places. So understanding of the food date labels remain patchy. So the Great Date Debate is a wonderful piece of work that Sophie and the team are doing to help address this. And preference for less expensive imperfect fruits. It's declined slightly. I see Sarah's comment in the meeting chat, and I do agree with her. If you would like more detail, there is the detailed pack on the Rabobank website. And once again, just thanks to Sophie and the team, and to Rabobank, of course, for believing that we need to educate, bring it to the front to drive change within our food system. Yeah, it's a good thing we do. So I hand over to you, Sophie.
Awesome. Thank you so much to the two of you for presenting today. It really is our Bible is a fabulous resource for us to help develop and drive our campaigns. And yeah, it was really great to see that, more people are always meal planning. We did a major campaign in March around meal planning and following our 4 C's, and that fourth C being create your list. So make sure you go to the supermarket with a shopping list, which is fantastic. And yes, thank you for the shout out for the great date debate, Angela. There's still 10 days of our campaign. It's really driving the understanding or building understanding of the difference between use by and best before. So yeah, if you haven't seen it in the market, please jump onto the Love Food Hate Waste website. There's a great little quiz there that can help you test your knowledge. Or share with your friends and whānau to help them build their understanding and confidence in knowing that their understanding is correct. We did some research around it earlier this year as well, and we had very similar results to what came out in the Rabobank KiwiHarvest survey. And it is really in that younger generation that confusion or lack of confidence in kind of being sure of what they think it is much higher. So we've got a little bit of time now for some Q&A. Juno, is there a question that you've been monitoring there? So I've been concentrating on the slides.
There's
There's
a few in here that will probably be directed towards the Rabobank team. So the first one from Sarah was, what is the definition of going to waste? Is it just food that ends up in landfill, or in all food not eaten by humans? And she's also, in brackets, does it include food given to animals or composted?
Yeah, great question. So just to reiterate, so this is household waste. So we're asking households. To be honest, we don't define it. So we let the respondents. It's simply the question you heard is what we asked the respondents, and they interpret it. So unfortunately, we don't get to that level of granularity, and to be honest, we don't ground truth it at all. So understand the variability that sits in there. Where we probably see the value is more probably the trends over time. We keep the methodology consistent over the time, and that's probably the relative change over time is probably where the value is. Maybe more so than reading too much into the absolute values, because as you're probably alluding to, there's different interpretations. People take different interpretations on some of those points.
Yeah, great. Elizabeth has asked, do you ask how many have groceries delivered or click and collect versus hand picking in the shop?
I don't believe we do. Dave might be able to, Ange, correct me. I don't believe that's a question.
I can jump in there. Yeah, no, not a question that we specifically asked. We do, I think Blake talked about the food delivery services, but that's more the, My Food Bags, HelloFresh, Uber Eats, Deliveries, Food Ninja, that sort of group. We do ask about usage of them, but we haven't specifically asked about food delivery from supermarkets.
Yeah.
Which might be a nice one to add.
Potentially for next time.
And then Margaret has asked, did the survey test whether vegetarians/vegans waste more or less food than the meat eaters? Interesting.
So that's not a question in the survey, but I would imagine if we went back to the research agency, there's no reason they couldn't correlate what the answers from that group was to their food waste behaviours. I might be overselling what they can do, but I can't see why they wouldn't be able to pull that out.
To delve in deeper, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then Katie has asked, did you see changes in using council food scrap bins dependent on location?
Again, I don't think that was probably a question within the survey.
Cool. No, that's good. And I think that is all. So if anyone else had any questions, please pop them in the chat or the Q&A, open the Q&A section as well. Oh no, here we go. Sarah Williams, is it the same people being surveyed each time? It's
No.
the same. No, yeah.
No, it's yeah, each time they do it, it's a random, well, it's a sample of 1,500 people that's calibrated to be representative of, you know, regional and different generational groups, but it is random. It's not going back to the same 1,500 each time.
And I'm just going to pipe in there because I'm very old, been doing surveys for a long time. It's actually better to have random people, because then over the years you're wanting to see, is the trend in the whole population changing? If you see huge dives, then you go, okay, is that an anomaly? But I think pretty much we're getting consistent answers through the years, so that then lets you take a look at the whole population of New Zealand, and it is representative.
Yeah.
All
Right,
right.
there's no more questions in the chat, but I'll keep an eye on it.
Awesome. Okay, there is a note there, not so much a question, but an observation around the need to do education on the fact that fruit and veg do not have perfect form, just like humans. We all come in different shapes and sizes, and that's dead right. It is. I've had lots of conversations around this, and you know, terms around kind of ugly veg or wonky veg. You know, ultimately that's the normal veg, right? If you're growing it at home in your own backyard, that is normal. So yeah, there is a conversation to be had around that, and you know, we'd love to chat with supermarkets around how we might frame that for the public, because yeah, we definitely don't want food to be rejected just because of that ugly kind of, or the aesthetics, and we want to make sure that you know, we want to kind of normalize eating anything that doesn't look quite perfect, because as Blake said, the nutritional value is still there. Angela might have something to add there.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to jump in because I speak to our volunteers that come into KiwiHarvest when we let them have morning tea, a rescued morning tea, by the way, because people are often horrified at the amount of food waste that we have in New Zealand, and why are these carrots here? Why are these capsicums here? And I say, if you just stand and watch the fruit and veg section in your supermarket for 10 minutes, you will see that every consumer picks it up and looks at it and puts it back if there's a ding in it. So the supermarkets are really just responding with their specifications to consumer behaviour. So every day, if you go to the supermarket, just pick it up and put it in the bag and walk out. You can deal with a funny shape, a different colour, all that sort of stuff in your kitchen. But the messages that the consumers are sending to the supermarket are the reason for Sarah's comment. So I'm just going to say that to you lot as a group. Don't pick it up and look at it. And if you do see a funny looking woman standing watching at your supermarket, it's me gathering my information.
Fantastic. Okay.
There was just one final question in there from Amy, was around, do we know what percentage of fish, fruit and veg is rejected by the supermarkets? Might be another segmenting question.
I've got some percentages of waste in the supply chain. We're actually waiting for the Ministry for the Environment to update their baseline figures. So they have been doing some work on that within the supply chain. And that's why Rabo and KiwiHarvest pick up the consumer research side. I'm hoping that information will be available shortly to update that. I can give you our stats of what we pick up. You're more than welcome to contact me and I can take you through those. but it's really MFE looking at that whole supply chain.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we're a bit at time for Q&A. We've got a little bit more to share with you all, and so how you might be able to take action. But if there are any questions in the chat that we may have missed, we can always follow up or answer them in the follow-up email that goes out after this session today. So I am going to share my screen again, and I can just quickly do that. I'll pause my chat. So you should be able to see that now. Because we are keen to give you something you can do to help resolve this this issue we have around food waste. So again, before I get stuck into this, it is another big thank you to the team today for presenting and for all the fantastic questions in the chat. As I said before, at Love Food Hate Waste New Zealand, we're genuinely grateful to Rabobank and KiwiHarvest for continuing to run the National Food Waste Survey. The insights you've just seen are a big part of what drives our work, and they help us understand where the biggest challenges are, what's changing over time, and where we can make the most meaningful difference. So off the back of this research, we have now our Great Date Debate campaign I mentioned before, so jump onto the Love Food Hate Waste website and check that out. But we've also been working on our major campaign launching in March next year, which I'm really excited to give you a little first look at and hopefully inspire you to download our campaign toolkits, get involved, whether that's online or within your local community. So the full report that Angela said is available on the Rabobank website, but we'll also share after this session, does also have this slide in it, and it shows that 98% of Kiwis claim they sometimes or always eat their leftovers, but only a third of us always eat our leftovers the very next day. The data indicates that people have really good intentions when it comes to leftovers, but often fall short on follow through. So leftovers are often saved without a plan. They're left to expire or neglected because people don't know how to repurpose them, or they're left so long that their safety is questioned. And this inevitably leads to leftovers becoming delayed food waste. And this is backed up by the latest data released from the Ministry for the Environment. They also showed not eating leftovers is the main reason for household food waste. So herein lies our challenge. Leftovers are saved instinctively, but not intentionally. With no plan for action, leftovers become delayed food waste. So this March, we have a legendary call to action, and we would love you all to join our Leftover Legends Challenge. We want to shift perceptions so that leftovers are not seen as boring or second rate, but they're celebrated as tasty, convenient, and a smart way to save money. We want eating leftovers for lunch to become an ingrained habit, and we want Kiwis to feel confident in the kitchen with the knowledge and skills to safely store their leftovers or creatively transform them into something new. And we're going to do this through a month-long nationwide challenge in workplaces and homes across the country. We're asking people to log every plate of leftovers they've saved. Every plate logged is a chance to win an absolutely legendary prize of groceries for a year. But importantly, it also triggers an email with helpful tips and tricks on keeping leftovers safe, lots of recipe inspiration and more. And we would love everyone here to join the challenge and watch the map of New Zealand light up with lots of amazing leftover legends and delicious looking leftover meals. So when we send out the recording later today, we'll include a link to the toolkit alongside lots of helpful information on how you can take part, and would be absolutely delighted if everyone joined us next March. And yeah, we became a nation of leftover loving legends. So thank you for joining us all today. I know there's quite a lot to download, a lot of data to process. So yeah, please do keep an eye out for the follow-up email. And if you've got any questions at all, you're welcome to email any of us. We'll make sure our contact details are there. But yeah, special thank you again to Rabobank and KiwiHarvest for committing to this important survey, and to everyone for coming along today. Your support, your engagement, and is really important to us, and together we can really drive this movement to tackle food waste and make a real difference. So with that said, I'll finish with a closing karakia. Ka whakairia te tapu, kia wātia ai te ara, kia turiki whakataha ai, kia turiki whakataha ai, haumie, huie, taiki.
Taiki.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks, Sophie.
See you later.